Greetings and welcome to October 2022, and thank you for joining me. We're talking about the nature of the times. Now, it is as if time itself is growing denser, like the water moving from the roots to the branches of the tree is slowly becoming a syrupy sap. And there's so much to talk about. The astrology is so dense. I'm just going to move, I'm going to fire, and whatever comes out is going to come out. And soon we'll be re-meeting to discuss our future solar eclipse in Scorpio. This is when we really feel and experience the changes and the turning points in our life. When we enter into eclipse season, we're talking about fate. And we can observe and study fate. This is what I do, this is what I offer, but understandably, this may not be everybody's favorite choice and option. We'll talk about Mars stationing square to Neptune can bring up this dynamic tension between the larger, bigger picture, inevitability, the things that we cannot control, versus the things that we want. October is going to very, very much highlight and underline the nature of relationships. There's so much we're learning and healing through the mirror of the other. This can lead us into a deeper appreciation and nature of the truth, who we are, the nature of all things. Relationship serves a function. It is a vehicle for our own evolution. If there's anything we cannot escape, it is this: our soul's desire to evolve in a particular way. And we are all living so to receive particular lessons that are leading us into our soul's desires and our soul's potential, which may not necessarily be what we consciously see, know, or understand to be our soul's desires, chosen direction, or the potential that we were born to actualize. This is our journey to uncover. This is our journey to discover. Now, October is an interesting month because there's so much change and turnaround. It really begins with both Mercury and Pluto stationing direct in trine in the latter degrees of Earth signs. Mercury stations direct on October 2nd, 24 degrees Virgo, opposite to Neptune. And Pluto stations on October 8th, 26 degrees Capricorn. Okay. Now Mercury began his retrograde on September 10th, opposite to Jupiter. Mercury will re-enter Libra October 10th and go opposite to Jupiter October 12th. So mid-September to mid-October, changes and turnarounds in regards to how the smaller pieces fit the bigger picture, and how can we create harmonious, cohesive, mutually supportive relationship will remain to be a highlighted theme this month into the coming months. As I mentioned, we're entering a period of fadedness. We're going to talk about the forthcoming solar eclipse in Scorpio and then go into a greater depth in the forthcoming video. The last new moon is leading us into the next new moon, which is a solar eclipse. So we're already feeling this eclipse. We're already entering that portal. At the end of the month when that eclipse happens, that eclipse portal will open. November, everything swirls, twists, and turns, and it's not until the following new moon in November, in Sagittarius, that we start to see what's on the other end. Now, Mercury begins stationing direct, so October can begin with a level of clarity and understanding. Mercury stationing direct in Virgo opposite to Neptune is receiving some type of spiritual download. It may be through dreams. It may be through a sudden awareness of the truth. Neptune retrograde is an exposure to the raw elements of nature, not sugar-coated, not fluffed up. It's the raw, undistilled truth. It's an interesting phenomenon that we see Neptune in front of Pluto. when Neptune rules the last sign of the zodiac, Pisces, and has so much to do with the ultimate, the inevitable, the all in all. And then Neptune retrograde kind of opens up the secret door that leads to Pluto. And that there's this very special relationship between God and soul that is actually driving all of our experiences here. But it is a full spectrum experience. We don't have on our earthly human experience all pleasantries. It's not a heaven realm here on earth. It is a full spectrum experience. And we're going to talk about how this full spectrum experience is what really breaks open our heart as being the point why we are alive. And this is not a spiritual truth I hear oftentimes spoken about out there in the pop new age spiritual circles. And I find that a very interesting reality at the tail end of Pisces, that we still don't really know or understand what love is, or how to truly have loving, supportive relationship. Let's start bare bone and honest. We don't know how to have loving, supportive relationship. We don't really know what true love is. Let's start there. It's actually way, way complex. It's actually leading us infinitely deeper, infinitely richer, infinitely more mystical. That's what love is. So let's start there, at the door to Neptune. The inevitable, the ultimate, all fatedness is that we are ultimately here to surrender back to the truth. And one of those most obvious and evident truths is that we're not going to remain in our bodies forever. There is a dance of union in our separation at the root of everything. And this will also be explored and investigated in relationships, especially as the full moon illuminates Chiron. Full moon at 16 degrees Aries on October 9th joins Chiron at 14 degrees of Aries, opposite to Venus, 13 degrees of Libra. As I mentioned, Libra, relationships, values, heart stuff. That's what's going to be front and central, and then taking the spotlight throughout October into our eclipse, which is the exact degree as Venus, 2 degrees Scorpio. I mean, this is about transforming our hearts, our relationships, how we obtain what we need, how we use our powers, and how we use our powers to obtain what we need is going to be put under pressure with this solar eclipse in Scorpio. And my friends, we can anticipate seeing, feeling, experiencing the full spectrum, especially emotionally so, the full spectrum of what life on earth is all about. And it's not all pleasantries. It's not all disaster. It's both simultaneously. And I'm going to share with you the truth that this is a mechanism to break open our hearts as the purpose for why we are alive. This is the reality of Chiron. Chiron, like Neptune, leads us back to ultimate truth. And Chiron is the reality that we all are on a healing journey, and that nothing in life is therefore truly complete or perfect. But neither is it meant to be. The hidden perfection of life, rooted in the imperfection that nothing is complete, nothing is finished, everything is driven by the vehicle of evolution. There's always more, there's always further, always. The relationship between soul and God is evolving, soul is evolving, nature is evolving, the planets are evolving, always. The seasons, the cycles, always. So this is ultimate truth. And Chiron has many hidden blessings that are rooted in this ultimate truth. There are hidden universal principles preserving universal balance and harmony, such as the truth and the reality that where we are cursed, there will be hidden blessings. And where we experience blessings, there will be hidden curses. If you really look at life, see what you have, what you don't have, where you're challenged, where you're blessed, you will come to terms with this reality. And Chiron leads us into this truth that where we experience brokenness, where we experience woundedness, is where the light enters. On our journey of healing, we discover the greatest medicines and treasures that we have to offer the rest of the world. That is the mythos of Chiron, the wounded healer. The centaur who could heal everybody, created the first school in Athens, taught everybody how to do everything. And then, as an immortal, is hit in the hoof with a poison dart and is now suffering relentlessly. Here's another truth I oftentimes don't see heard, acknowledged by the pop New Age teachers. There is such a thing as authentic suffering. I am not one of those spiritual teachers that touts the popular spiritual belief system that we simply sacrifice our ego and then all suffering goes bye-bye. Oh, it's just your story. Just your story. Bye-bye. What a way to throw the baby out with the bathwater. The soul creates the ego, and the soul evolves through the ego, and the ego authentically suffers. And when we speak to somebody who's suffering and we do the pop New Age thing of saying, it's a story, stop complaining, bye-bye, I'm letting you all know that's a dick move. That's how you be an asshole. It has nothing to do with compassion, nothing to do with loving. It is therefore not authentic spirituality to me. And when we talk about authentic spirituality, we're talking about our hearts breaking. That's the authentic response from a compassionate soul when we come in contact with somebody else's suffering. Not, how do we make that go bye-bye? We experience it with them. Real love is messy, is the reality of the solar eclipse. We evolve by getting into the mess as much as we evolve by getting out of the mess when it becomes too much. And that is the balance of the Taurus-Scorpio polarity, where these forthcoming eclipses are taking place. This is the polarity of enlightenment. This is the polarity of heaven and hell. This is the full moon that the Buddha was enlightened. Full moon in Scorpio, opposite the sun in Taurus. The Buddha is tempted by the devil, Mara. All of this torture, the fears, the being tempted into misperceiving the truth of wholesomeness. And that's what the real non-attachment is. There is healthy non-attachment, but it's not saying goodbye to the ego. It's keeping the soul afloat. So that way when we go through the authentic suffering that we will experience through ourselves or others, we see that as the Chiron mythos. Because the story does not end with Chiron the immortal being hit with a poison arrow and suffering for the rest of his life. Chiron must come to terms with his fate. And Chiron's fate is to become the sacrifice. And by replacing Prometheus on the rock in Tartarus, where Prometheus, who sacrificed himself for humanity's development, evolution, innovation, Prometheus is chained in hell and tortured. Chiron replaces Prometheus on the rock, is sacrificed, dies, and then is immortalized as the constellation Sagittarius. Similarly, we are learning about how to honor what is true spiritual sacrifice, Neptune, Chiron, which is not the same as the superficial sacrifice I've spoken past videos about. The fake selflessness, which again, this fake putting down the ego can lead into this fake selflessness, where we're not actually helping ourselves or another person. And we're learning how to speak up for our needs. We're learning to communicate from the heart so that way we can support one another in mutually harmonious relationships. It's both Venus and the Sun. In Venus' sign of Libra, end of September through October 23rd, when they go into Scorpio just before our eclipse. So on the full moon, the 9th, opposite to Chiron, and then Venus in Libra, opposite to Chiron on the 10th. Again, a healing of the heart. This is also a healing through separation, individuation. the need to honor differences, incongruencies. And this is again where I'm going to share some of my own Mercury stationing direct download, which is for me a reality of relationship, that we can never truly, totally merge. We can never truly become identical. We can never totally touch one another completely because there are boundaries that allow us to experience one another as different. And if we didn't have the boundaries and if we didn't have the differences, we could not experience one another as lover and beloved. But in love, we want to merge with the other. Therefore, we encounter one of the greatest dilemmas that we encounter in life: how to truly be a loving person. And how I explain Pisces is it's more complex than just getting on your hands, knees, giving up your desires, praying to God, and then we all merge back into the singularity and going around saying we're all one, we're all one, we're all one, we're all one. That's really, to me, an amateur level or lacking understanding of God and spirituality, because you're actually denying like 50% of reality or the truth in order to favor 50%, and then that becomes a belief system, and it's actually misleading. It leads us into more suffering as opposed to understanding the truth, even if it's a harsh truth. If we learn to hold that, we're aligned with truth. We aren't being misled. We don't have to create fabrications in order to be okay. And a lot of relationship is this exploration of actually where we're creating fabrications in order to be okay, which can be shadow Libra stuff, versus how are we actually individuating, allowing each other separation, allowing each other freedom, trusting in that freedom, trusting in that spaciousness, and still having connection. How can we be truly mutually supportive, collaborative souls without throwing the baby out with the bathwater, with too much self-sacrifice or too much autonomy? It's like I almost 100% of the time in relationships see it how it's just one or the other. It's like there are certain people that just really struggle with intimacy, and so they hop from person to person to person to person. And then there's the type of person who, really just gets enmeshed and believes that, them solely being with another person is the point of their life, and they lose their friends and they lose their connection to the rest of the world, and then they get married and just go off, and that's that. I find it rare that it's a little more complex. People tend to kind of lean in one way or the other, not to overly generalize, but these are just some of the obvious things I see how we're struggling in these ideals in relationship. So this full moon illuminates the healing journey conjunct Chiron. The full moon can be painful conjunct Chiron. And I don't counsel anyone in this. I mean, I've heard people speak to Chiron being just like, oh, it's a story, it isn't real pain, you'll get over that. Fuck that shit. So unempathetic, so uncaring for the human condition. No, it's painful. Love is painful. There are elements we're going to experience in life that's painful. It's not wrong to experience pain. What we're learning to do is actually how to embrace pain without going into a trauma response. How to healthily grieve, how to healthily mourn, how to healthily let go is the healing journey with Chiron and Aries. And this is necessary to come back to ourselves. Confidence, initiation, leadership, energy, actually being in touch with this inner spark that informs us. This is what's right for us. This is who we are. In order to be that effective, confident leader, we have to be defined. We have to be free to honor our own path, our own direction, our own intuition, our own gut instincts. And these gut instincts, oh my God, it's a guttural period. It's going to stay a guttural period. My sensitive friends, souls, this is what we're feeling in October, is the anticipation. It's like the tidal wave when it's going way, way back, and it's like, oh shit, this is a tidal wave that's about to come. I'm not going to talk you out of the reality that this is what's coming, and we can be prepared for it, but humanity's about to do a swan dive into its shadow. Humanity's about to regress into the past. And we're going to expose the underbelly, which is necessary. It is healthy. It is healing. But am I going to tell you that it's comfortable? Why would I sell you such a deception? It's not comfortable. If you're tuned into the collective, you feel the pre-vomit. And I think that the pre-vomit is honestly worse than the vomit itself. When you're vomiting, it's relieving. You're getting the old toxins and poisons out of your system. Right before you're about to vomit is the holy shit, I've got a bunch of toxins and poisons in my system and it's about to go. And we feel full and we feel hot, uneasy. So that's our guts in October, on fire, uneasy. But we're going to eliminate the food poisoning that's been haunting us for years into decades. It's leaving our system violently. And we want to celebrate this, we want to honor this, we want to create the systems, the relationships that are going to take us through this process. And to be aware of what the process is. That's simply what my duty and desire is to share an awareness of what this process is. Do I think I do it perfectly? No. But do I hear a lot of people talking about what's going on at the most basement levels of reality in hard times when people don't want to look at what's going on in the basement level of reality? People avoid, people escape, and we don't want to do that right now. It's going to come crashing back with so much more force. Today, October 4th, is the final square between Saturn retrograde, square to Uranus retrograde. It is the time for something to change. Something has to change. We do not have to like where things are right now. We do not have to know where everything's going to go right now. I did mention Mercury and Pluto just station direct, but Mars is about to station retrograde. A lot of the hype and paranoia that I hear, pop astrologers and then pop astrology communities circulate about every Mercury retrograde because they're so predictable, happens 3 times a year, so what a perfect moneymaker to talk about Mercury retrograde in a paranoid, superstitious way. Well, Mars retrograde, folks. I think Mars retrograde is a little bit more realistic to what people say about Mercury retrograde. Mars retrograde really takes us through a trial and error of what it is we really want and what direction we're really going into. And folks, it's going to change. Wherever it is you think you're going right now and today, chances are you're going to be going somewhere else a few months from now or tomorrow. And we need to keep this level of flexibility open. I mean, Mars is going to square Neptune the first time on the 12th, then go retrograde on the 30th, and then square Neptune again on the 19th. Mars will return to where Mars is stationing retrograde now, square to Neptune again in spring 2023. So this Mars retrograde is actually taking us now through spring 2023 in correlation to these eclipses, which is also 6-month cycles. So this 6-month swan dive, scraping the barrel, vomiting that out, and then springtime, we start to see the hidden blessings and where we're paying it forward. Scorpio is about compost. We have to compost it sometimes. You really love somebody, you have to compost them sometimes. Do we talk about these in our Walt Disney fantasies that we grow up watching? Do we see these realities in the television shows that we grow up watching as a child? No. It's not in our collective mythos. A deeper, more complex understanding of love, therefore the heart, therefore all reality. The nature of good and evil is going to be highlighted. With Venus, conjunct the solar eclipse in Scorpio. Guess where all good and evil comes from? Venus. Guess where all good and evil comes from? The human heart. Not scary bad guys out there that are separate from us. Only that which we are directly connected to is where evil comes from. We have to look at that. We have to look at the evil and the shadow in ourselves. Do you hear a lot of people talking about that in these pop spiritual circles? It gets deeper. It gets richer. If you really want to know the truth, if you're passionate and burning about the truth, you're going to get there. If you really want to know, you will. But it's this passion. We need it. We have to have it. That's what keeps us out of the fabrication, the deception. Mars retrograde is a lot of exploring desires. Mars retrograde happening simultaneously with a full moon in Aries, Chiron in Aries, Jupiter in Aries, solar eclipse in Scorpio conjuncts Venus, a lot to do with sexuality. Exchange, energetic and magnetic. And why? Who? Why have we had these attractions? Why these people? It's a past life regression, but as we're going to explore, it becomes symbolic, it becomes archetypal, and that's when you're getting towards the truth. Why do I have these patterns? Why do I have these cycles? It's not because life is meaningless. It's not because life is just a dream machine and you create your own reality, every single thing, every single level. Give me a break. Wake up. Let's look at the world around us. Let's be here. Let's be present. We're going to really need to call on each other's support when things get messy, when things get scary, when people start panicking, when people's bank accounts start wobbling, when it starts to look like global warfare. Yeah, people really start to panic. The antidote now through 2023 is always going to be this Taurus. Zen Buddhism, feet on the earth, the blueberry under the tongue, meditation, smell, breathe, hear the local sounds, the wind passing through your hair, the smell of the passing gust of wind carrying the scent of flowers. That's how we return to the present moment. Talking about somatic therapy, somatic healing, using the body, the senses. That's the healing journey for all of us. Sovereignty, spaciousness, slowness, simplicity. While there is a necessary exploration of the very opposite, complexity, emotional claustrophobia, getting entangled with one another, exploring the reality that we all do rub off on one another. You think sex and our attraction is just accidental? It is a spur for evolution. And when we have sex, there is an exchange between souls. It's very important to have conscious sex, therefore. You are mixing souls. We have to look at that. We have to study who, what, and why we've mixed with the souls that we have and what's driving those things, what's going on beneath the surface. It's a symbolic, archetypal exploration that will lead us into an understanding of our soul's evolution, where we began, say maybe the traumas of our childhood, of which we've all experienced, and how those traumas can be connected to hidden blessings that will lead us into our potential as teachers, lovers, healers, etc. Now, this full moon in Chiron can be experienced like a punch to the gut. It can be painful. It can really hurt us. You want something? No. Denied. You want to be free? Well, denied. You've wanted this thing your entire life. Your entire life you've wanted this thing. Well, carrot on the end of a stick. That's what Chiron and Aries can feel like. Or you want to be a warrior? Well, sorry, that's for women. Or you want to be sexy and seen? Or I'm sorry, that's for men. You want to be sexy and sensual? Sorry, that's for women. Gender wound, sex wound. Physical, bodily wounding. What's going on with our bodies is telling us about this deeper archetypal story. Everything is interconnected. What's blocked? What's hurting? It's informing us. It's like an alarm system that's taking us back to the root of what needs to be changed, what needs to be addressed. Now, as I've mentioned, Chiron in Aries. He popped into Aries in 2018, but largely Chiron's been in Aries since 2019. Through 2026 is this mass collective period of healing through individuation, separation, coming back to the inner warrior, healing our sexuality, healing our autonomy, healing our strength, our libido, our charge. This is where desire is very important. We use desires to motivate ourselves. We want something. We're excited about that. Wonderful. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Don't pretend to eliminate your ego. Don't pretend that you're selfless. The ego and our desires are there to be explored. Mars is the cutting edge of our soul's evolution. We have to explore these desires. If we suppress them or deny them or avoid them like a celibate priest, a horny celibate priest, those desires inflate. Those desires become perverted and distorted and become sub-personalities that possess us. So no, we cannot deny or avoid our ego or our desires, whether they seem high desires or low desires. We're here to explore why we have these desires, how we can make them a reality, and they very well may not be able to be made into reality. But it will therefore unfold and lead us into a deeper reality, or more of what it is that we truly want. Some desires aren't realistic and they get burnt out, for example. But that's an evolution. It doesn't mean don't explore those desires. It means put your hand on the stove top, however many times it takes to shift. That's a realistic Mars retrograde, to be totally honest. This full moon in Chiron can be illuminating the healing journey, even where that healing journey may be painful, may be leading us on that stovetop or exhaustion or punch in the gut type of healing journey. These are the spurs to awaken, to get back to our soul. To be totally comfortable where we already are would actually be the truest hell of stagnation. What a true imprisonment, what a true falsity. As misleading as things could possibly be, that we're only this limited, tiny thing. Again, this is the true suffering I feel, oftentimes see in the codependent enmeshed relationships that are out there. People lose their souls in the so-called name of love. Can you think of anything more sad or depressing than this? To me, this is one of the most painful things that there is, called a trauma bond. And we live in the age of trauma bonding. We don't know how to love and we don't know how to relate. We don't know this balance between Aries, Libra, where Jupiter is, where Venus is, where the full moon is. We're learning about this dichotomy between separation and union. That's not a fairy tale. That's not a prince and princess live happily ever after, and then we hit the pause button and nothing ever happens, nothing ever changes. We just remain constantly the same people and we're perfect. Is never real life. So how do we heal the trauma bond? Maybe a necessary healing through separation. I'll share a little bit of my own personal journey in this regard. In 2019, I broke up with my ex, who some of you may know. I originally formed Rasa Lila Healing with my ex of 10 years, who I lived with along with her daughter. In 2019, which was joined with my 8th house Saturn return, joined with Pluto, we separated. And what I observed is that all of these Chiron and Aries transits for me have been going back to this root separation and this root healing of a trauma bond, which is where there was a spiritual wound that originally formed when I was a child between my relationship to mother-father, that then becomes reflected in my personal, intimate relationships throughout my life to heal the original spiritual wound between soul and God, reflected in the relationship between infant, child, mom, dad, then later healed and reflected through relationships. And we heal the last relationship and the current relationship, and the last relationship is reflected in the current relationship, so on and so forth. We are all separated from our mothers at the umbilical cord. That's a root trauma that is natural. Did you hear what I just said? Trauma is natural in life. We learn how to heal trauma as a necessity in life. Trauma is a vehicle for our soul's evolution throughout our life. No accident. Not a thing to be afraid of. Not a thing to veer away from. Not a thing to superficially say we'll totally get away from. It's at the root. It's not meant to be different. We learn to embrace one another's healing journeys in order to even know one another for who we are. And in order to have a healthy relationship, I think our relationship becomes about mutually respecting each other's healing journey. What do you need to be in your evolutionary potential and heal? And vice versa. That's a spiritual relationship. In a spiritual relationship, we're also going to learn that we can't be the all in all for another. We can't do everything for the other person. We can't be God or goddess for the person we love. And that's a hard reality, but it is a reality that leads us back to human heart, human truth, Venus truth, Inanna truth. As this full moon can be illuminating a period of necessary healing through separation, I'm going to share with you what I wrote to myself recently in this journey of healing a trauma bond. It's very common, by the way, for astrologers to be working with codependent type of people. They're my most common client. You don't get as many narcissistic people desiring astrological consultations. So I think this might be useful for a number of you out here. This may be something, I'll maybe write it down and put it in the video description as well. You can print it out. Read it to yourself whenever you're feeling the pain of separation, to remind yourself of who you are, the truth, and your own beauty. You are healing a trauma bond. By letting them go, you liberate both of yourselves. A trauma bond makes seeing clearly impossible. It makes things that are actually small very large. It makes irrelevant things personally hurtful. It creates fear of loss or death where there isn't any. If they do not want a relationship with you after letting them go, it could not be a good, fair, or truly loving relationship ever. Trauma bonds are soul-sucking, unnecessary, annoying decay. They make relating to one's own self or another impossible. They cut us off from the flow of life and natural currents, creating stagnation that rots, pollutes, and poisons the heart. Invite in the pain of separation as an ointment for your soul and all the souls you will make contact with. See that it is truly a mark of dedication to real love. Recognize and celebrate the significance of this. Perpetually acknowledge your heart's strength. Letting them go, you honor love and beauty at once. The waves from your heart rattle awaken the whole world. You are healing a trauma bond to speak and live in truth, because you choose to distance yourself from denial and laziness as a mode of operation, and instead, you choose to live. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be speaking with you all again shortly to discuss the forthcoming solar eclipse in Scorpio. At the end of the month, Venus will form her superior conjunction with the Sun at the last degree of Libra, and then enter into Scorpio, 2 degrees Scorpio joined with Venus on the 25th. We will have our solar eclipse. And then in the days to follow, Venus will move ahead of the Sun and rise as the morning star. Phosphorus Lucifer. Humanity will turn a chapter as we enter into a period of increased Promethean intensity, learning the full range of human potential and the human heart. I look forward to connecting with you in our next meeting. For those who'd like to be in closer contact with me, say you have questions about your chart, you'd like to be receiving additional reflections and information, as well as connecting with other brilliant, pioneering like minds, you can join my community at rosalilacommunity.com. I put out a monthly astro calendar for free every month. You can get in tune with my astrology school, and you can connect with me and exchange additional resources. Again, I wish absolutely the best to you and your beloveds while we go through this period of time. As always, take care. So much love to you.